So, picking up individual things and all that. But one of the downsides that they didn't consider of those decisions is by making it so every single one of those was their own click kind of thing, you were effectively adding a bunch of needless clicks to your game. And those clicks weren't meaningful. They weren't meaningful decisions. They were clicks for the sake of clicks. And you would end up having to do a whole bunch of them. So, like, for example, some of the stuff that got really bad was, say you wanted to 6-link a piece of armor. Well, your chance of 6-linking a piece of armor, I think there's some point someone did the math that they're like, okay, on average it should take something like 1,200 fusing orbs to do that, on average. Well, that means on average, I would sit an item in one place, and then what I would do is I would just hold, I think it was shift, like hold right, shift, and then start mashing left click on it as fast as I could. And on average, it would stop at about, 1,500 clicks. So that's 1,500 clicks. That is not a meaningful decision. It is just murdering your fingers. It's like those kind of things that are the ones that's like, this has no reason. Like, give me the option to just say right click, left click, and just, I'm willing to burn 100 fusing orbs, and it just burns them, and you get it or you don't. Yeah, there was a whole bunch, like, I knew a ton of people who set up auto clickers for, like, fusing stuff and all that. They're like, I'm sorry, if they ban me for it, it just means I'm getting out of the game, because, like, this is unreasonable. And then one of the other things that was notorious for it was Path of Exile had a real problem where a lot of mechanics were overtuned, and that the only way you could deal with them being overtuned was to get yourself flat-out immunity, which usually came by the means of flasks, which meant you had to keep the flasks up at all times. And that usually meant you were going to have to click, like, we jokingly called it the flask piano, where you'd have to hit, like, 1 through 5 or 1 through 4, whatever your flasks happen to be, every, like, roughly 12 seconds. So you can imagine, anytime you're playing the game, the whole time you're playing, going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And doing that the entire time you're playing the game is like, what? My electrical skill is at 4. Not really. Like, my goal isn't to hit, like, 10 in all the skills. Like, honestly, electrical skill past, like, 3 doesn't have a meaningful use in my opinion. There's a couple things you can make, like motion sensors in that, but like, okay, so you have a motion sensor that you can have it set off something that catches fire. I don't want fire in my base, so I'm probably not going to do that. So like, that's one of the things, is like electrical doesn't have much. Yeah. Oh yeah, Lulu, and then there's that, when you have like a build that actually has, like, if you do, say for example, was it a mine build? Where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, you're hitting left click, and then you're hitting right click to like set off the mines, or whatever your button is to set off the mines. And then you have like your buff you use every 20 seconds. And you just sit there and go through the whole thing, you're like, okay, I'm basically just doing this rhythm of my moves to no end, and it's just as many fingers as possible. And the worst thing is, because you're having to reach up to those 1, 2, 3, 4 keys, reaching up on your keyboard is worse than like anywhere near home row kind of thing, because you have to like extend your wrist. So you're like, you're absolutely doing it's almost like they designed it to be as bad as it can be for considerations of repetitive stress injury. Like, they couldn't possibly make it worse without trying to like maliciously design it. And this is coming from me, who has thousands of hours in the game, and I do very much enjoy Path of Exile. But until they start seriously addressing a lot of that, and they have been improving it, I'm not willing to give up my health for it. And they've done some stuff, like you can now get flasks that you have them where, based on certain conditions, the flask will auto-trigger, or based on certain conditions, the flask will like reuse, that kind of stuff. And I think that's a major improvement. To me, it's like, okay, if you're going to do this, like, it shouldn't be my play as I either have curse or I'm immune to curse. And, like, if I get cursed, I just die, because that's the problem with how the game is now. Is you get certain curses, you just fall over dead because of how overpowered they are. So your only counterplay is, again, make yourself immune. It shouldn't be that way. The curse should be like, okay, this makes it slightly more dangerous, and then when combined with other things, makes it significantly more dangerous. If it is a, you get hit by this, you die, there needs to be telegraphing, there needs to be ways to avoid it. Like, all that has to come into play. Like, it should be treated like a lethal attack within itself. But there's so much that goes that way. It's like, bleeds are that way, poisons are that way, curses are that way, where you get hit with a poison and then suddenly your character just falls over dead because it's just overtuned, or same with the bleed. Curses being the biggest one, though, in my opinion. There's so many curses that you get hit with the curse, it's like, well, I'm dead. Unless you have the warding flask up, or you're an Inquisitor and you went for the immunity, which is what I've, like, the last couple leagues I played, that's all I did, is I like, alright, well, I'm just going to take, you know, elemental affliction immunity, curse immunity, get a thing to make me immune to corrupted blood, and just immunity my way past all the game mechanics. Oh yeah, and I always do defensive builds. It's just like, for example, you could have a build that has like super solid defense, and they go into a tier 8 map and you're getting hit with the elemental curse, and if you don't have a flask of warding, now suddenly you're taking like absolutely absurd amounts of elemental damage, even though you have your maxed out stuff. It gets really ridiculous. And again, lots of love for the game, but it is one of those things that's like, that is, and that's always been a criticism of Path of Exile. So often, so many of the game mechanics in it are one-shottiness, where everything seems fine and then you're dead. And it's so much of it is because, you know, you have curses that are overtuned to just immediately take it from, this map is Resident Sleeper, you just can't do anything, like, to get yourself killed, you're so bored, kind of. Like, you can stand there, take a nap, and you'll be alive and fine. And then you get a curse and then suddenly you just fall over dead, like, instantly dead. Yeah, I'd heard something about influences and all that. I have heard really amazing things about this league. And like, that was one of the things I brought up was, you know, I was like, you know, I really want to play this league, but I can't realistically play Path of Exile in another game. I wasn't going to go out and keep doing this today, but we are already on our way, so we're just doing it. Elgo said, the in-game one-shot, they agreed to let hardcore players use the logout macros ages ago, and there was no other meaningful way to threaten them. Yep. And I mean, personally, I just say, okay, logout macro is not okay, or there's a consequence for it. Like, do something. That isn't actually the air activity thing, that's the flavor text, but it looks like it. Like, I'm in the mindset, okay, you've done a thing that you made it so logout macro is what you're balancing around. I'm sorry, that's not okay. Like, if you're going to have things that can kill the player instantly, there needs to be a play counterplay. Like, either the attack needs to be super telegraphed, and then you're like, I can do stuff to either like get out of the way of it, or, you know, pop some kind of defensive move, or like use a flask proactively, not reactively, that kind of stuff. Yep, okay, so now is the workaround, is people who survive, their entire solution was, if I can just delete this screen and the screen half a screen away before the monsters even have a chance to load their artificial intelligence, then I am the safest. Like, the monster that doesn't get a chance to attack to me is the monster that cannot hurt me. And so that's when they start adding stuff like porcupines and bearer bombs and all these other monsters that on death kill you kind of thing. you know, corpse detonation stuff, like all that kind of crap. Because that was like deemed as the only way to kill people who go super fast is just, well, if the things they kill are actually, you know, killing them, whatever. Oh yeah, and I mean, I've always had to do that, Lulu. Like, most of the characters, like the most common classes I was going was Necromancer and Gladiator, and that was primarily because max block. So to have max block, I'd have a decent amount, like a really high amount of usually armor, and then top of that, I'd have a ton of life. You know, plus your resists and all that kind of crap. So I always built that way. Yeah, I shouldn't be clearing during the fog, but I left him like, well, I'm already committed, so whatever. I mean, I'm not really committed, but I am choosing to be committed. The good news is you can usually see the zombies' heads over the fog. Is that a hunting knife? No, let's get out of here. Oh yeah, and even, like, exactly, even when you are super duper tanky, you still get one shot, it's just way less often. Like, that's the problem with how spiky the damage is in Path of Exile, is your life bar will stay full and not move 99.9% of the content, and then you'll get hit once and die by that one thing that is enough damage. Like, again, it'll be one of the things that you get cursed with elemental resistance or elemental weakness right as you get hit, and just suddenly all of your life just disappears in a single hit, or you'll get a bleed that it outruns your regen and your defense, but it won't be just like a little, it'll be by like a factor of 10, so your life will just instantly vaporize. Like, it's not great. Yeah, that's what I want. And the worst thing is, like, and this all came out of where they had the one race where a whole bunch of the US, like, streamers who play and all that and do the competitions were invited to use a Chinese client and actually, like, see the difference. And the fact that, you know, the Chinese client actually had it where, oh, when you die, like, it'll show you how you died and that kind of stuff. And the fact that, like, they just had that already, like, got a lot of people real salty, considering it's a feature that's been asked for forever. And they're like, but it could mislead. I was like, you know what's even more misleading? Not having a clue. I would rather it tells me, you know, like, oh, all this stuff happened, and you can't really figure out which one was the one that actually finished the, like, not which one finished you, but which one was the most relevant, I guess I should say. Oh yeah, that was a fiasco. I know people who got super upset. Even people in like the streaming community were like, "Look, man, you know, I got to use this feature and it was amazing. Why is it not in your game?" And it's just, the answer is they have a very specific design philosophy they want their game to be, and they don't care what the players want with that design. I shouldn't say they don't care. That's being too harsh. They have a design philosophy and they stick to it. And unless the parent players force the issue with them, they will stick to it. Like, it became kind of a joke in the community that, you know, you'd say, hey, we want trade to be something other than what it is, and they'd be like, well, here's our manifesto on why we're not going to do anything you just asked. And so it almost became a point that manifesto was basically them telling the players that they're just not going to listen. You know, but they'd try and be, no, this is the reason why it's good and why you should do what we want and not what you want. And there's usually some merit to their arguments, but it's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't matter. That's not what the players want. That's what you envision for the game, and that's cool, and I do appreciate you are sticking to your vision. There is something to be respected about the fact that you're saying, hey, look, this is what we want the game to be, and we're going to stick to it. At the same time, often it's like trade right now in Path of Exile, I don't trade if I don't absolutely have to, because I despise the way trade works in the game now. It was janky and endearing when I first started. You know, fair enough, and I was like, I don't know what all the fuss is about, like, it's fine. But it's just gotten worse and worse over the years where nowadays you want to trade for an item, and even if you wanted to, you get no response. Yep. Most of the manifestos are why RSI is good. Not catching quite the like, are you saying why RSI is improved or why RSI took forever to improve? Like, that's the thing I'm not catching there, sorry. Augusto says, my favorite thing is when they made the terrible league that, like BCR, suddenly next league they'd implement a bunch of changes. Oh yeah, it took forever to improve. Yeah, that was the reason that I used their words. They want items to have weight. And people joked about going to like GGG Games, like going up to Chris Wilson's office and say, hey, look, I'm going to give you $100 for your cosmetic, and then just dump rolls of pennies on the floor and say, hey, how's the weight of those pennies feel? You can really feel that picking up. Yeah, well, it became a thing that was discussed a lot, was that people started feeling more and more that quality of life was being, you know, quote unquote held ransom. That basically what would happen is they would have their league, they'd do whatever, and then when they wanted to like get people into the game, they would put like just one quality of life thing in each major update. And like it's like, okay, but your quality of life improvement took like no resources, like no meaningful resources to put in. Like, they always talked about, oh, it'd be impossible to make items that drop stack, and I'm like, why? Like, even the most junior of junior devs could sit there and turn around and go, okay, just run one pass and the items are supposed to drop that says, hi, are there more of me within X distance? Okay, now I'm a stack of the total. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's process, or, you know, process concerns, all that's like, but saying it's outright impossible, like, no, I'm sorry. If it's impossible, it's like your code has a problem that needs to be fixed. It's not impossible for fundamental reasons. It's impossible because you deem it impossible. Code can do almost anything. It's whether or not it's worth the time investment to get it there. Which is a legitimate consideration at times, don't get me wrong. There are times that's like, I want to do this thing, it can be done, but it's going to take, you know, 200 plus hours to do for a trivial thing. Yeah, don't do it. We are on default loot. At the same time, we're basically not looting at any meaningful level, so it doesn't really matter. But we are on the default for Apocalypse, which is, I believe, rare. Alright, one moment, zombie. I want to eat my lunch. Hang on. Hey, Lightbreaker, I'm sorry, Lightbreaker TV, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the follow. And a posture check. I do keep ending up slowly working my way into a slouch, so thank you for keeping me honest. But yeah, like, honestly, and I pointed this out earlier in the stream, like, if we look, I've marked every place I've looted in this place on the map. So we've got these buildings down here, which, you know, I took some produce from, got some tools and some food, tools and food. In Ekron, we had just a couple buildings we hit. We never even bothered looting any of these buildings in the back. None of these, none of those, none of that. We went up here. Technically, I'd say I looted this house, but not really. We technically looted that because there's no loot in here, so I just marked it to know not to go back in there. Didn't really loot any of the other meaningful buildings. Like, we took a couple things out of these, but not really went in. Didn't really loot these. Didn't even go into any of the trailers. We just made tons of noise and killed the zombies as they came out. I took some equipment out of here, but there's still tons there. I think technically we looted that building, I guess. I probably actually should mark that this building we looted. But like we've looted almost no buildings. And it's just there's been no need for it. Like with as many zombies as we have, when I kill the zombies, they drop stuff for us, so we get more weapons. Don't need it. We are fishing and farming and all that for our food, so don't have to worry about it. We live at a gas station, so we got gas. But yeah, and that's the reasons, like, when you come up with runs like the really CDDA, like the really CDDA is super... I could use a sledgehammer. That is one thing I could use, and for all I know, inside that warehouse there may be a sledgehammer sitting there with my name on it that I may never pick up because I'm not bothered to go and look for it. But, like the really CDDA is like super hard at the beginning. For those who aren't aware, the really CDDA challenge is you start in the middle of winter, so it's already cold, it's already frigid outside. The loot is set to extremely rare, which is the lowest level of loot other than none. On top of that, you start with a piece of glass lodged in your groin, so you have a deep wound to your groin. So your very first thing you need to do in the game is yank the piece of glass out of your crotch and, you know, put a bandage over it. You are soaking wet. You're naked. You have an extremely bad cold. You're extremely drunk. And on top of that, your house is on fire. So that run is basically the first 5-10 minutes of your run is everything is at 11. But the moment you get past that, where you start to stabilize, you've got enough food to survive, maybe you found a generator or a car or something. Suddenly the loot being rare doesn't really matter that much. Once you get through that first winter, the run becomes just another, like, it becomes a fairly easy run, honestly. Comparatively speaking. Like, it's not an easy run, but it's just a normal run after that point. It's the very beginning, though, that is super harsh, though. That said, I do think extra rare loot for if you're doing, like, you're not doing a ridiculous challenge like this, is a lot of fun. Alright, you have a good one, Kit. And thank you again for hanging around, the sub, and all that good stuff. I do hope to see you around. You sleep well and all that good stuff. I really wish this fog would go away. Like, I shouldn't be out here fighting in the fog. It's just I went on autopilot, drove right out of town because, like, oh, gotta go kill the zombies. So I'm out here and it's like, well, I might as well. What do you got on your shoulder? Ah, hand axe. I don't care about that. I'm gonna go take it because I'll probably need an axe sooner or later. But I don't actually need. Give me the axe. Stop fighting me. I need to ditch stuff. As much as I love having hunting knives on me, I feel like 18 hunting knives might be a tad excessive. So put away like 8 of those. Sandy says, honestly, I did see I had issues with weapons that are extremely rare loot, but only because I wanted axe and crowbars specifically. After the first month, though, zombies provided everything else for me, food, gas, water. Never really ran into an issue no matter how loot rarability. Yeah, so like when we're doing these 16x runs, like right at the beginning of the run, like I use every weapon we can get our hands on. If, like, when I talk about anything, I will be using dinner forks, I will use butter knives. If they are willing to give it to me, I am willing to use it, because genuinely I will keep running out of weapons. But if it's not even getting to the loot, though, like, I have to kill the zombies to reach the loot. And at these populations, that's just not going to happen. Like, that bread knife, I would be scooping up that bread knife early game. No question about it. Like, bread knife? Heck yeah, bread knife. And when I saw the spear, but first we killed zombies. But once you start getting to like maintenance 4 or 5, then you get to be picky about what. Hey, large backpack. I really don't need a 5th one, but I'm gonna take it because I have greed. And here I have a gas mask too, so that's fine. Don't need it. Alright, what do we have in here? All of that out of my life. Cool. Finally, the fog is letting up. But yeah, now these runs, it's entirely that early game is the hard part. Like otherwise, the rest of this is effectively just, can you keep doing it? Like, can you keep it going? Did I mention the garden hoe actually gets pretty good once you get some long blade skill? Just saying. I think, oh, not that one we didn't one tap. I think it was like the last 10, 12 zombie kills, we one tapped all but one of them. And now we're not. No. It is a long blunt weapon. The garden hoe. Gotcha. Yep, no problem. Nope, it's just a long blunt that gets work done. And like the shovels are also real good. Now at low skill levels it's kind of crap because it's a little tricky to get stuff meaningful out of it. But once you start getting some decent weapons, it's got decent reach, it's got decent attack speed. It has decent rate of knockdown. Its stamina usage isn't terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It's kind of like the shovel where the attack speed isn't super fast, so it takes a decent amount of time to burn through stamina, even if you are just wrecking house. Its durability's alright. Olga says, I'm about a month in and I finally got my second nightstick. So there is variance in the loot depending on how long you've been playing. So like katanas don't even show up in the game until you're at least 2 months in, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised to find that like maybe nightsticks have different frequency of dropping as the game goes on. Because like right now, like early game, if I found a nightstick, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, nightstick, we are set for days. Versus right now, it's like, oh, nightstick, I've got like 50 of them. Like, I'm at the point of just like, I don't even want to pick up nightsticks. Like, I like them. They're a really good weapon. I just have a bunch. Need to remember to pad that military coat. You aren't wrong. I forgot about it. Yeah, August, it also helps on where you are. Like, if you're near the police stations, like, I found Rosewood police station area, I've walked away at times with just absurd numbers of nightsticks. Yeah, a lot of these zombies we skipped on our return trip because we're getting close to Drowsy. I was like, I just want to get back safe. So we're mopping up what we skipped. Come on. Holy crap, just get out here already. Thank you. Let's see. Ogo says, I've had runs where I've had... Yeah, we already covered that. Usually that's in Road, though. E-Gravy says, I have a compulsive rat... 1 second. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Elgravia says, I have a compulsive pack rat urge that I cannot deny. Well, he got stuck in that tree, and I could see that actually happening, like a zombie shirt getting hooked on a branch and just... Yeah. I can see zombies just, like, freaking out, going, like, I can't move. Yeah, no, it's, like, this game is absolutely the best and the worst thing that can happen to a hoarder. One, it can scratch that itch in such a good way. It is also those games where you're just like, I need to not be hoarding all this money, or all this junk, not money. And yet, here we are. It doesn't even have to be useful crap. Like, we've had runs where we've massively collected, like, friendship bracelets, just because we could. I have no idea what you're saying, Rubuffet. Loot is the dopamine hit in this game. If you're not picking up loot, why play? Yep. They stole your shoe foams? I still don't know what you're talking about. Xander says, I am hoarding from ties and cups of different colors and clothing. Oh. Okay, so, like, in real life, someone stole your flip-flops, is what you're saying? Like, granted, very expensive name brand flip-flops. But is that what I'm gathering? No, you used foam from old school shoes to ward off the rats and someone stole it. First of all, if you could tone down the all caps a little, please. But, okay, weird. So it's not like you had just, like, foam from old shoes to keep away rats. And so I was like, you know, just got rid of it kind of thing. Weird. I mean, the question is, did they know you were using it to get rid of rats? Because they may have looked at it and go, this is literal garbage, let's throw it in the trash. Because they weren't aware of the purpose it was being used for. Okay, so they stole a trash bag and then shoe foams? I mean, I would assume they were collecting garbage. Like, if I walked into a place, like if it was the landlord, for example, and there was a bag, like there's a trash bag in the middle of the living room and like the inside of shoe soles, like just chucked in the floor, I wouldn't assume it's like, oh, there's a perfectly logical reason for this. I'd be like, what is this person doing? Why are they destroying my apartment? Or condo, or whatever. Not that they're not in the wrong for doing it. Okay. Okay, I mean, yeah, I'm, like, if it's in a dumpster, it's trash. It doesn't matter. Like, the moment you put something in the trash can, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. Like, it's one thing if they're, like, stealing it to, like, take identifying information or whatever, but whatever. Plenty of reasons. They actually do a good job for being able to hold stuff. If you're really desperate, they can be another layer for insulation. I mean, they may not have known a way to take that. You alive, zombie? You dead? I think you're dead, zombie. You're dead, zombie. You alive, zombie. Yeah, I'm more confused about it than anything. Hi, zombies closing in from all sides out of nowhere all of a sudden. How you doing? Why do you do this way? Alright, I don't want to fight straight up and down. I don't like it, so that's the reason we're circling around this way, so we can fight this way. It's just harder to judge range when you're straight up and down. Like, I'll do it in a pinch, and I do fine with it. It's just not... I prefer not to do it if I don't have to. More chance of error. Thank you, Rack. I would really like to stop fighting them so I get in my car and go home since we're getting the sleepy. Because the sleepy is no good. That's the reason it's taking so much longer is we take a damage penalty by being drowsy. It also means we don't recover stamina as faster, which means we're more likely to get exerted, which then is another damage penalty. Now let me catch up with chat. It says, right, yeah, I get some things, but we had a bag of clothes outside next to the dumpster, some chicken coop equipment that could have been sold even if it was just selling the wood scraps. And even a hall told he must have seen them because they weren't in the dumpster. They were sitting there in the open. He was just like, took the see-through trash bag. There was only the stuff and hid literal dog crap. I mean, yeah, that's kind of my thing is the moment you put something in or near the trash, you just have to accept it's going to be considered trash. If the trash people come by your house, they will pick it up as trash. If you intended on selling it, you don't put in the trash. You don't put near the trash. But yeah. No, it's like, and you also have to consider the person didn't know what was in the bag, that kind of thing. So they probably took the bag and then identified what was in it later. That kind of thing happens too. You also have to consider a lot of people who are homeless, unfortunately, between the way they're treated by society, their lack of access to usually good nutrition, the way they're, like, just all these different things. Even if they went into being homeless without any problems, just that lifestyle can be very grating for a person, and it can cause you problems. That you're not working on all faculties. That doesn't mean homeless people all have these kinds of problems. It's just very difficult for a homeless person. And that in itself can be the thing that causes problems. It's one of the reasons why, like, when I'm around the cities here and you see people treat homeless people like absolute crap, that I have very little tolerance for that type of behavior because they just don't understand. Yeah. And they may not have known what it was. And they went for the other bag because they were like, oh, I think there's something here. Like, they thought it was something that wasn't. You have no idea. They may have just honestly wanted an empty trash bag or one that they could clean up. They weren't really worried about the stuff in it. Stop aggroing. I would like to go. Anyways, I am going to say that this is the point that we're probably going to go ahead and drop that subject and move on. Because we do get that you're confused. And that the specific circumstances were kind of weird, but sure. Nah, probably not. And Rubipet dropping a weird flex, saying, I got all these points. I'm going to show them off. I got so many, I'm just going to delete them and use them as a way of demonstrating my superiority. Weird flex is best flex. Ogo says, finally killed my way into Ekron, and the game gave me a trailer. Heck yeah. Whenever she actually plays multiplayer with us again. I have a feeling, and it's probably she might not end up playing Project Zomboid with us again. I don't think she will. Like I had said before, she had played it all, is I didn't think it was going to be her kind of game. So I feel like part of it was, you know, just kind of being like, don't like assume. I think she did have fun the streams, but I think there's other stuff she'd rather do than play Project Zomboid. She'd much rather watch their shows she's into and all that kind of thing. That's fine. At some point, we'll end up having her play multiplayer games again. So whenever she comes back, like, then we'll bring... Like, anytime she's on stream, we'll do the MT Tomb Explains. But, that won't be until, like, the next time we find a game to play together. So I would assume if it comes back, it'd probably... Like, in the near term, it'd probably be one of the Thursdays we might play, like, a multiplayer game between us kind of thing. Like, Overcooked kind of game or something. Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yep, okay, so I don't think I've ever found a trailer in this game that wasn't in trash condition when I found it. Like, every single one I found has been beaten up, but usually it's just this kind of, you know, just these as, okay, find 2 tires, and then just start welding. I mean, honestly, even if it's in trash condition, it'll usually still give you an extra 100 storage, and that's nothing to be upset about. Alright, we mostly were just re-clearing the path we already cleared, but that's going to happen a lot until we've been through here a lot. Yeah, I find single player I've never had a problem with the trailer. Like, the only thing that gets me in trouble with the trailer is it's behind you. So if you narrowly maneuver around a zombie in your vehicle, the trailer can still snag the zombies, which can slow you down, which can get you in trouble. But, multiplayer, I don't trust trailers. Like, people have convinced me it's probably fine as the host of a multiplayer server, and it's gone okay so far. But, if I'm not the host, I would not drive a trailer out of fear that it would just get me killed, because there was a lot of that right when multiplayer chopped. Like, you'd see some of the trailer and suddenly their car would just start floating up into the sky, and you just hear all these awful noises, and it would kill the person driving, who was at its mercy because it's technically a moving vehicle. You can't get out, so you just sit there and wait for your character to die with no way of preventing it. You know what, the comment about mods earlier, I probably do need to find mods. If we're being real, I probably do need to get a mod or two. It's always one of those weird things, like, I don't want to obligate anyone to do anything unless I'm going to pay them. So it would be purely like, they would, you know, come and go as they please kind of things, which is fine. Like, that's what's supposed to be. You know, you have a stream you like, you're there. What is that? Spirit? Don't care. Like, I like Spirit, so I'm not going to stop right now for it. Where did you all come from all of a sudden? We had to have triggered a migration, time-wise. Moderator. Like that I actually should have moderators to keep an eye on things. We haven't had too much problems. Like, there's only been a couple times I've had to step in as a moderator. And then, like, once or twice where I've stepped in as a moderator where someone's like, hey, are there any mods here? And usually my next question is like, okay, I can mod, but don't make me mod. At which usually point they will do whatever the thing they plan to do, and then I will have to mod, and then I'm not happy about it. Because if someone especially, like, for me, honestly, when someone goes, is there a moderator here? Almost any time that comes up, it's usually a bad sign of what's to come. It'd be like if you're at some bar and someone says, hey, are there any cops here? Like, alright, hang on. Why are you asking that? Like, what's about to happen that you're concerned about the presence or lack of presence of police officers. Like, there isn't a scenario this ends where I'm not concerned. We got zombies in the middle of the road in our town, so we'll stop and kill these two. Gotcha. Yeah. No, and that's appreciated, and I do appreciate it, Rack. Just want to make sure you're aware. I do appreciate the fact, like, hey, you know, could you not? Oh yeah, we make all our salads just about behind the wheel. Not really all of them, but we make a lot of salads behind the wheel. It is kind of our go-to. Though, are there any mods here? It's like, oh no. Because it's one of those weird things, like, and I imagine this goes both ways. Like, for me, because, you know, modding means for a viewer, you're doing extra stuff. Like, you're watching for when messages come in and you're addressing them and all that kind of stuff, and I get it. So, I personally don't want to ask someone to say, hey, I know you're just, you know, watching, chilling, having a good time. By the way, while we're here, could you do stuff to help me out? You know, I can't pay you or anything because this doesn't make any real money. But, you know, so like I don't feel comfortable's not the word. I don't want to ask for that because it doesn't feel fair. And I imagine it's probably the exact same thing for someone watching the channel who's like, I shouldn't just go to the stream and be like, hey, can I be one of your mods? Like, okay. I can imagine that goes both ways, but it is weird because that's like it's the same thing. Yeah, you probably don't want to actually ask that. I'm sure, you know, a lot of stuff gets monitored. But there's that just lost my train of thought, sorry.